Okay, moving on. So here's the impact of the EGO crisis on sesame, Indian sesame imports into the EU. So averaging around 5,000 tonnes per month through most of the year. The sharp decline comes in December, and the recovery is running around 2.5, maybe 3,000 tonnes per month. So still some way from pre-PPO periods. Here's a graph showing quantities and values since 2009 on imports into the EU, with 2020's numbers listed in red at the top. So 129,000 tonnes, a very similar number to 2019, 2018. So consumption still very strong here in Europe. Here I've taken a look at the annual EU imports by origin, and I've highlighted here in yellow the origin and increase in their supply to the EU. So Turkey's moving up the list quite rapidly and supplied more than 7,000 tonnes during 2020. And China also, a fourfold increase on the previous year. So some quite significant moves within the supply base into Europe. And here we're just looking at values, average values of the last 2 years imports, 2020 and 2019. Again, highlighting Uganda as the only origin to maintain or increase average sales price into Europe. Every other origin suffered a price decrease during 2020. Our Big Five. Well, Turkey have entered the Big Five this year. India, Nigeria and Sudan still very, very strong important players and suppliers to the EU market. But Turkey comes into the Big Five in 2020. Here's a brief breakdown, very similar of last year, of how the sea is split amongst the European nations. Greece and Germany and the Netherlands dominating the imports. As you all know, I like to highlight and inform all members of our Sesame family that the EU is still placing tremendous efforts and attention on quality. And if we have new members to the Sesame community in the room today, please keep in mind that there are lots of web information available to help you monitor and understand the demands of the EU market. A regular visit to the Rapid Alert portal will help you follow the upcoming trends that are causing issues within Europe. Salmonella, of course, is still something very important to the industry, and with over 662 notifications just this year, during 2020, I should say. And I'm going to show a collection of EU regulations which are constantly being added to. This one, back in 2017, started the ball rolling with the microbiological analysis going on. Then with increased levels of official controls continue. And again, temporary increases came into play in October 19. So the Rapid Alert system is now reporting ethylene oxide notifications 731 right up until yesterday. So still a very ongoing And this indeed is the update to the journal talking about the increased testing for ethylene oxide. So dated 23rd October 2020. Fluorides, again, is something coming in and very much in focus of the EU testing, and I would urge all exporters to be aware of the fluoride regulation. Take a note of the number here, 2020-749, visually later. And the EU pesticide database is also a very useful source of information. Web link is at the top and will be shared later. So, regular attendees of the conference will remember my Stokes an acronym, where Europe is looking for safe and compliant sesame that can grow our market organically and is kind to the environment, ethically produced and from sustainable sources. And let Mr. Ben Stokes always remind you of it. Hopefully, he will deliver some good results in the coming days. Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, sir. Are you done? Anything more insightful for us?
That's it. I'm done.
Okay, so I'm sure you're going to stay back, and I'm hoping that you'll stay back for the Q&A, where a lot of questions about EU are coming your way.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Next in line, we have Mr. Suhail. Mr. Suhail, the stage is all yours. Kindly take your presentation live and take the stage. This is Mr. Suhail from Seminolas, Guatemala.
Thank you very much. Are you able to see my screen?
Nice and clear.
Okay. Let's get started. We have a lot of ground to cover, and I think I was allotted 10 minutes of time to speak. Just a quick disclaimer. All right, so a few months ago, we talked about where the Brazilian exports could be. And I'd like to start with Brazil just because it's currently LATAM's largest producer of sesame seed, but as we spoke last time, it seems that exports and production is going to be down, and that's mainly has to do with the fact that farmers chose alternative crops that paid a better price, principally corn. So if we look at some of the year-on-year exports, we can see that 2020 total exports were about 72,000 metric tons for a total value of $70 million. And exports for that 2019-2020 crop, which ran from June to May of 2021, it's obviously higher, about 85,000 tons, and that means that Brazil had a very, very big crop last year. But what we're seeing this year is completely different. We have some exports data for the last couple months out of Brazil, and we can see that there's a huge drop in export volumes in June and July, August and September, and we expect this trend to continue, specifically because of the logistical challenges that exporters are facing in Brazil, the lack of container boxes, and the higher freight costs. And Obviously, all of this has impacted or has been compounded by the fact that we do have a decrease in crop size. Pegging the total crop size at 55 to 60,000. As I mentioned earlier, there's competition from other crops and lower effective yields. Exporters are also achieving higher international prices. Brazil is no longer cheap like it was last year. Prices are no longer cheap versus what we're seeing from other origins. So these are just some of the key takeaways from Brazil this year. Paraguay, again, I was expecting lower exports out of Paraguay and lower crop size. This was mainly weather related, but there are also some of the same logistical challenges that Brazil is facing in terms of shortage of container boxes, delays, or the fact that goods have not been able to be transported downriver because of a general drought. So let's see some of the export data. Again, we are seeing that in 2020, total export volume was about 43,000 metric tons. This year, we can already see that volumes have decreased. We are expecting total exports around 32,000 for this year. The main destinations are Mexico and Japan for Paraguayan sesame seed. So again, we have a lower crop size, expecting a 30% decrease. This was mainly due to unpredictable weather. Crop quality was also not great. And we are seeing again some big logistical challenges. I think everyone else is facing. Sorry, this slide should say Mexico, but these are year-on-year imports for Mexico. 2020 volumes, imports were very significant, about 39,000 metric tons. And what we're seeing already from Mexico is that 2021 imports have decreased. There is a trailing deficit about 12,000 metric tons, and I expect this deficit to widen in the next coming months as seed from any origin has become particularly difficult to procure and import. So these are the year-on-year exports of sesame products out of Mexico. We can see that Mexico is mainly exporter nowadays of sesame seed oil and tahini. And if we take some of that assumptions for the manufacturing loss, we can see that the natural sesame seed throughput in 2020 was about 59,000 metric tons, or that's my guess of how much natural sesame seed was processed for exports. And we can see already in 2021, and these are values to August 2021, the exports haven't slowed down. They've maintained, and I'm expecting total exports of sesame seed and its products to be close to where they were last year. So that's about 39,000 tons or 40,000 tons. Now, local production in Mexico, these are some of the publicly available information. 2019 and 2020, there was a total hectarage, harvested hectarage about 62,000 hectares. Production about 44,000, 43,000. Unfortunately, there's a lack of survey data, or official survey data in 2021, so we don't have a clear view of where local production will be in Mexico, but it is obvious that, or it's my hunch that farmers have planted alternative crops, just like anywhere else in the world, due to the low prices of sesame. There have also been some weather-related issues that could potentially cause a decrease in the crop. So, just let's talk a little bit about Guatemala. Guatemala has a crop size this year. It's expected at 11 to 12,000 metric tons. And this seed is always destined primarily for Japan as a premium confectionery seed due to the fact that manual harvest and good agricultural practices are sustained. And again, there's not really much going on out of Guatemala. Just every year we're seeing crop sizes that are very similar and not growing even though, or not slowing down even though the prices were low last year. Out of Venezuela, as many of you might recall, used to be an important producer in Latin America. There were years about 30,000 to 40,000 tons were produced, but this has all changed in the last few years, and this is the result of the fact that farmers have opted to sow green mung beans instead of at the expense of sesame seed. The 2021 crop is very small. It's no more than 4,500 metric tons. And this decrease has a lot to do with the lack of farming inputs, especially diesel, that has decimated the farming in the country. And I think we can safely say that the collapse of Venezuela as a sesame exporting nation is complete or near complete. And obviously this is a combination of the lack of very bad economic policies in the country. So we don't expect a rebound out of Venezuela, even though prices might be attractive, just because it's become very challenging to farm sesame. So just a quick recap. General planting has increased year on year. This is to do with the fact that competing crop prices have incentivized sesame production. I had expected Brazil to become sort of a global swing producer, or hoping it can become, and I think we need to see what will happen in 2022 if high prices in sesame seed can incentivize Brazilian farmers to produce again at a large scale. Total Latin American production does not exceed 150,000 metric tons aggregately. And while we're seeing many logistical challenges that everyone else is facing, there's also some opportunities. The fact that we are close to some of the destination markets like the US has opened up some opportunities. So that is all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now we have a good picture about South America as well. Moving on to the global scenario. Sanjeev Sharma ji, the stage is all yours, and everybody is looking forward to see the supply and demand scenario that you have to present. Most of the times you're right, sometimes a little bit off, but let's see what happens this year. Please, the stage is all yours. Mr. Sanjeev, are you there? You can unmute and take the stage, please. Yes, we see you on stage. You're not audible. I think, is your mic off?
Hi.
Yeah, now.
Perfect. I was waiting that there's an echo at my end. Hi, good afternoon, good evening everyone. So first of all, I'll start by saying thanks to IOB PC for creating this opportunity on a different kind of a platform, a hybrid mode. Whenever things have gone out of control, the Indian entrepreneurs have been able to use the concept of jugaad and come back with something. And this is a wonderful thing IBPC has created by allowing people to meet again. So, since we have very little time, I'll start on my presentation. Just before I get into that, one clarification of one thing which I would like to point out. The numbers are looking like there's a strong shortage and everything is bullish. But so let's not conclude and let's not get carried away by that. Let's evaluate all the scenarios and then come to that conclusion, even if we come to that conclusion. What we will be covering in this presentation will be about origin trades. A bit of an overview of the top origins, price trend in China. China determines whatever happens to this market is completely governed by China. So we will determine that. And then what is our view, what we see the new problems. So starting on with the origins, I think I'll be repeating myself here because most of the early presenters have covered this. And so the overall number is that yes, there is a reduction. Africa, which is the largest producer, has
Sanjeev,
across the board reduction. Brazil
not on the full
is
screen
considered as a potential speed governor that they can be able to increase their productions as soon as market prices go up. They have also not been able to do that. Asian crops are down. So everywhere there is a issue on production.
Sorry to bother you, Sanjeev. Can you put your presentation on the full screen mode?
Is low. Now we have to match it to how do things go forward from here. But just a recap, again, similar issues which everyone else has pointed out. In places like Nigeria, the shift is towards soya, corn, and even something as unrelated as paddy. The people have gone and started cultivating paddy. Paddy has started, rice has started competing with sesame. That's a very, very strange thing to happen. Because one is a dry crop and one crop requires standing water. But that is to give us some feelers that how changes can happen in the agri sector, how things will change in the agri sector going forward. We can't take things for granted that African farmer doesn't have anything to any other options to grow. Ethiopia again, there was area reduction and now there is some other issue. Now the political issue in Ethiopia is also not helped. Just give me a moment, please. Sorry, I think I'm having some issues on sharing the screen. The mode is slightly different. Okay, sorry. I think I'll continue with this. I'm not able to make the changes in case it's coming up. It's not coming up as a.
That's okay. This is fine enough.
As a full screen. Then Sudan again has had issues as was already pointed out to the president. So I'll move on from here. Coming on again on to China. Now China is something which has been determining the stocks. China is something which has been determining how the market moves, how the price is determined is all starts from China. And for some time we've been tracking the two prices in China. One is the Indian price in China and one is the price at which the local crop or the local port stock gets sold to China. And there is a good difference that we see here. It could be the intention of China, it could be the intentions of the traders of China, or possibly the way they are looking at the next crop that helps them determine these prices. So for last 6 months, we are seeing that the Chinese prices at the port were lower and the Indian prices were higher, giving us an indication that it's probably the Chinese port stock which is playing on. So we went on and then we tried to put the Chinese port stock also onto it, but again we find no correlation here. Whatever happens in China's port stock has no impact on what happens on in the prices. But what we have seen here is that for the last 6 months, ever since the Chinese crop area came under problem, or the problem of Chinese crop intentions came to be known, prices have started going up there. And this has started going up, it matches the prices when the stock was going to be about 300,000 tons. Anything between 260, 270,000 tons is the time when this port the prices start going up, and that's what confuses everyone. So that is where I again want to bring you back to where I started from. That at this stage, when we were seeing the prices of the stock levels of 260, 270, most of us had started looking at a possible scenario where Sesame would be going back to 1,000, 1,100 kind of prices. And with this kind of a stock, if the biggest market is not willing to buy, then where will the prices go? But then see how the situation has changed on just one short news of Chinese production being low, and then everything has culminated into pricing going up by almost about 30%. So that's something which I want to draw your attention to again, that can happen again. We might have some other reason and this price could again either could go up or come back from here. What do we see in new season forwards? China crop, definitely there is a 30% reduction that has been mentioned. India crop, we will hear about it from the crop survey, but the general feeling that, or the general market information that is low. Nigeria is low, Sudan, Ethiopia, everything is low. So on the crop size, no issues. But what we see, on the demand side, we don't see any issue. So China, which is the price driver, continues to say consumptions have not reduced. And when somebody says that the consumption has not reduced, practically they are saying that it's going up, the demand is going up. None of the buyers will come back and tell you that he's having a good time and the demand is high. Just by saying that, it can be read as that the demand is going up, the consumption, the way they are imported is a reflection of that. As comes out from Hoshino-san's presentation also, Japan should import more in FY22 as they reduced the stocks in last year. So if they want to do that, they will have to buy more from this current crop. Their stock to sales ratio is very low. Indian crop shortage will also invite imports from Africa. And wherever we were seeing challenges in the oil demands in Europe, in various places, but then post-COVID, things are going back to normal. Of course, Africa has a low crop, so that's a bullish sign. The higher freight stock, the Sudanese port issues, and general port delays is another big issue. So that is going to be all the bullish news. But let's not forget the other possibilities. That this next 15-20 days is when the crop comes heavily or it starts coming heavily in Nigeria with lack of support and Chinese stock levels at 210. We could see some correction. God forbid, I hope it doesn't happen, but new waves, new variants of COVID are also something which can be detrimental to any country. Countries were beginning to open up, and some of the countries, especially in the East and Southeast Asia, have started seeing issues on the COVID issues. Another possible pressure point we could see is that you cannot bring in new working capital into Sudan till the time you export it. So that could be And not only Sudan, in any other country also, we could feel cash constrained because people will only put certain limited amount of capital in a Sesame business or in any particular geography with their own ideas of risk assessments. That could mean that yes, while there is a demand outside, but inside the origin there is no money to buy that. Nobody is willing to buy it off the farmers, which would mean huge disparities of origin prices being low, the destination prices being high, and you're not able to do the shipments, and we are exposed to all other issues of the trade which happens, when the price goes up and price goes down beyond a certain range. We have also seen that the processed sesame market is shrinking. After the ETO episode, it's almost a year, and some alternate products are already gaining space. And of course, we can't ignore the new origins of Pakistan, etc. Something could come up and could start shipping in more. So our view remains, it's not one-way street. Supply is to remain tight, that's guaranteed. But supply disruption will definitely lead to price going up. We are not sure. What we are sure is that it will lead to a huge price volatility. We could see a couple of upswings and a couple of downswings, and maybe significant up and down swings because of this. That's all we have from here. Thank you. Wishing everyone a successful and profitable season. Stay safe. Thanks.
Thank you so much. You kept it brief, you kept all the cards in your pocket, and I like the way that you put not in terms of China's demand. That is interesting. So let's move on to the next speaker. The Q&A starts after this. Next speaker we have with us is Mr. Jay Chandarana. He's the co-convener for the Sesame Seed panel, and he's going to present the Indian Sesame Seed scenario for us. Over to you, Mr. Jay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can we start from the beginning?
Just a minute. We're getting Jay on center stage for us.
Hello everyone, today I'm going to be...
Jay, just a second. IOP EPC. Yeah, we are live. Jay, the stage is all yours, and for the online people who see Samantha written in front of Jay, that's our technical team's name, so please don't confuse that. That's our very own Jay Chandarana for us.
I hope I am audible. Yeah, so today I'm going to be presenting about the Indian Sesame Seed scenario. Welcome everybody. This is a new thing that we are trying, so please excuse technical difficulties that we are facing. So IOPPC has been in the service of oilseeds industry from last 6 decades. These are some of the things that we are doing right now. Oilseed crop survey, export awards. We are providing market intelligence to participants. Capacity building programs are being held by us. We are also providing arbitration, farmer awareness campaigns, and non-preferential CO. We are also the nodal body for promotion of exports. Of course, being an EPC. And we also started to issue the certificate of export for sesame seeds to EU and the health certificate as per the new legislation. Sesame in India go a long way back. It is, I think, the oldest indigenous and the fourth most important oilseed in India. As everybody knows, sesame is very nutritious, and India is among the top 3 producing and exporting countries in the world. This is a brief about the Indian sesame seed scenario. Considering the crushing rate, I think India is the largest producer of sesame seeds with a crop size of 700 to 800,000 tons. In India, all kinds of varieties that are known are being grown, which includes white, black, yellow, black, brown, and because of this, sesame is available throughout the year in India. The top Indian states which are producing sesame are West Bengal, which produces mainly the crushing grade, and Rajasthan, MP, UP, and Gujarat. The time of harvest and the seed variety is different. India also has a good hulling industry with an overall capacity of 250,000 tons per ton, and we also produce sesame oil in bulk and packs. These are some of the states that produce sesame, with Gujarat, Rajasthan, MP, UP, and West Bengal being the major ones, and Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, Tamil Nadu, and Assam being the minor ones, with crops coming in winter, pre-summer, summer, and post-summer. As I already told, we have a lot of diversity in Indian sesame. There are 90 notified varieties, and around 30 of these are in the seed chain right now. One thing which is good about Indian sesame is there is no hybrid seed available, and there is no GM variety which is grown by India. This is the global and the Indian scenario, some comparison for you. So 16.5% of entire world's acreage is in India for sesame seeds production, for growing, and the production is only 13%. So this is because of the low yields. This is something that we have to work on together as a community, and the exports are around 12% of that, which is in proportion. This is the major oilseeds which are being produced in India and their percentage of exports. So as you can see, groundnut is a big crop, 7 million tons, but only 9% of it is exported. While sesame, 700,000 tons, 790,000 tons, out of that 273, so around 35% is exported. If you calculate the edible grade crop and the edible grade export, it will be around 400,000 tons and 250,000 tons. So we would be at around 60%, which is very significant. So most of the sesame grown in India still continues to be exported. This is the top oil seeds in terms of percentage in exports. So as you can see, groundnut and sesame seeds, they account for around 85% of India's oil seed exports. Groundnut being 60 and sesame seeds being approximately 25%. These are the last 6 years export figures from India. The big thing about India is India continues to export to 145 countries. So I think most of the countries which use sesame in any form, India exports to them, which is a good thing because we also do a lot of partial shipments. We also do mixed containers. This is an area where India is very strong. The top 10 destinations would be South Korea, USA, Russia, Taiwan, Vietnam, Israel, China, Greece, Indonesia, and Egypt. So if you can, as you can see, from 2015-16 to 2018-19, around 325,000 tons plus or minus 5-10,000 is where India's exports were. And since 2021, as the production has gone down, that figure has come down to around 275 plus or minus 5-10,000 tons. These are the top export destinations for India. European Union has block being the largest, accounting for around 25% market share. As you can see, that share has gone down a little bit in 2021 because of the issue which came up with regards to quality and regulation. But to contrast that, I think Korea increased their imports from India, and we are at around 15% overall in Korea. So I think it was expected that there will be a big dip in exports when this issue came to light. But overall, in 2019-20 we had 282,000 tons. In 2020-21 it was 273. So there was only a 2 to 3% dip, which is small considering it was I think the most difficult year for Indian sesame exports. This is an approximate composition. There's no actual data available for this mix, but this is as per trade sources. In 2020-21, I'll just highlight that natural is around 60,000 tons, hulled is around close to 190,000 tons, crushing is 23, black continues to be at 3,000 tons, with yellow being 500 tons. This is an important figure. India has started to import significantly since 2014-15, and from last 2 years I think we are at 100,000 tons and above. Overall, this figure is considering the Indian crop size around 250,000 tons. This kind of import figures we will continue to see. So India will continue to participate in the world market also for import of sesame seeds. The main countries for supply are Sudan, Brazil and Nigeria. Also coming up in a good way is sesame oil. If you will see, our share in global production is 10.6%, but our share in global exports is proportionately higher, which is around 22%. 11.5% of India's production is being exported right now, and you can see a steady rise in the volumes from 7,000 tons, 7,700 tons in 2015-16 to 11,000 tons in 2021. So these are some of the constraints in enhancing exports, sustaining them at the levels that we have been doing. Most of you are aware. I'll just go through them for knowledge. Technical barriers to trade. Japan is a big market worldwide, but we don't export to Japan because of pesticide issues. EU, as you all know, last year we had big issues with regards to pesticide residues. Salmonella continues to be a cause of concern for the EU. And in Eurasian countries, striga-free is something that causes issues from time to time. Chinese duty at 10% is obviously a big hurdle for us. Now that Pakistan has no duty, they also have DFT. It puts us at a more disadvantage than before. We have a lot of potential in the Bundelkhand region. Government has also highlighted this. We have been, the government has approached, Bundelkhand government has also approached us to set up clusters there, and we are exploring this. So that region is unexploited, and there is a good opportunity to grow nearly organic sesame naturally in this region. Right now, I think the African farming is very low cost, which we are not able to match considering rising labor costs in India. And the mechanized farming which is being done in Brazil, we have not adopted. So we are lying somewhere in the middle in this mix. The last season, some of the major highlights that I found were we had a below average winter crop. As you already know, from last 2 years we are facing weather anomalies, which has continued for this year also. The EU issue which came up was a big dampener. 2.5-3 months the exports were closed, but fortunately from January onwards exports have started, and overall we have been able to resume most of the volumes that were going on before this issue came to light. COVID of course was a problem. On and off it has been an issue in major markets which has disrupted exports. Logistics, as every exporter here would vouch that logistics is a big issue, but thank God it is overall we are at a pause right now, and we feel that some correction will come in the market from coming months. Also, no major dip in exports as expected by most industry players in the last season. For the coming season, some observations. Carryover stock is estimated around 50,000 tons, mostly from the Gujarat summer. Winter crop sowing was normal, but weather anomalies, final output is a big question mark. Arrivals have started, most of which are rain damaged. For Gujarat, summer crop has become the main crop now. Overall, we are looking at 20, 30, 40, 50,000 tons coming in the winter crop, and upwards of 100,000 tons coming up in the summer crop. Freight costs are stabilizing, as already said. Supply is expected to remain tight. on two accounts. One, there are short crops expected worldwide, and also logistics. So even if you have crop, it is difficult to get it where it is needed. So both of these things will lead to supply tightness. One major thing I think that I want to point out is India has an opportunity to continue to produce 400,000 tons of edible grain. We just need to concentrate on the summer crop. I'll just, a case in point is 125,000 hectares of summer crop sowing produce 150,000 tons of sesame seeds. And compare that to 13 lakh hectares of winter crop, which only produces around 300 to 350,000 tons. So for 10 times the acreage, we only get double the crop. So we need to really concentrate on more efficient farming and summer crop if we want to continue to be relevant. And if the above can be achieved, then Indian honey industry of around 250,000 tons will continue to be relevant, because we will get seeds in India. Imports will still be there, but they will only be there to fill in gaps and not as a mainstream. A disclaimer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jay. Now we are over with this session and we move to the Q&A sessions. Everybody online should join the new session, and our speakers, may I kindly request you to go to the Who Below platform that you were. You can log out from Zoom, and there is a session called Q&A. Everybody must come there. All the speakers are already mapped. You will be on the panel there. So we end this here, and Sanjeev Bhai is the moderator in the Q&A session. So I kindly request him to take the stage and take over the session. Thank you, gentlemen, all the speakers on the panel. Kindly log out from here, back on the website, and click on Q&A session. It's a very simple process. I'll see you there in a bit. Jana? All the people in the spectators, if you have a question, you can raise your hands and we will take you up, depending on the question that you have to answer. The panelists are slowly coming on the stage. Just give us a few moments before we get things sorted out. Thank you. Our panel is building up, and so is our audience. Mr. Sushant Soni has just raised his hand. Mr. Soni, can you just wait a few seconds till we have the panel fully set up? Just a few moments more. Mr. David, I think your mic is on, so that there's a little bit of echo. You'll have to switch it on and off as we go.
Okay. Good afternoon to all those physically present here. Good evening, Hoshino-san, Sanjeev-ji, because you are in the Far East. Good afternoon, Tarun, I'm guessing you're in Dubai. David as well, and good morning, Suhail. It was an interesting session, listening to all of you speakers, giving us a global view, giving us a local view. I can't see Alok. Alok, I hope you are there as well as part of the Q&A. I can't see you on screen though. I think if I had to sum it up very briefly without being given too much time, I would attribute the last 2 hours to the 4 C's: containers, currency, climate, and China. I think these 4 C's would cover all that we have been talking about for the last 2+ hours. But having said that, each country seems to have its own intricacies and its own challenges. So we do have a large number of questions. I will try and make it as brief as possible and hope to get some correct numbers from everybody. Usual disclaimer from our side as well that these questions are those that have come from the trade, and like I said, we hope to have correct answers. We have a few questions for Alok, but I can't see him yet. I'm going to move to Tarun. Tarun, you mentioned 1.05 million tons as the import of China, which was the highest so far. At one of our IOPPC conferences a few years back, maybe about, I would think about 8 or 10 years back, we had a global trader who predicted this very accurately, and I must add, when China was importing about 200 to 250,000 tons. What is your view for the next 5 to 10 years? Where would China go from here, from 1.05 million tons?
Well, very difficult to put a number to where China's imports will land up. Sesame is a healthy option, and health and wellness drive is happening everywhere as we move along, whether it is go vegan or looking at the plant-based diet options. So what we need is that some of the demand drivers like sesame oil companies like Wilmar or the local Chinese companies, and even some other family-backed companies like Yuha or any other brands to push Ryukyu for that matter, have to push their marketing campaigns in a way that the health and wellness message of the sesame oil and the sesame benefit is delivered to the larger population, and that converts into a demand trend. The only thing, Sanjeev, I can say here is that Sesame will benefit out of the health and wellness drive, whether it is Japan or China or any Korea or this part of the world. We believe that the growth in demand is definitely on cards. Whether this million ton will turn into 1.5 million tons, only time will tell.
On China, one more question. We are hearing of power shortages, factories being shut for half the week, etc., in China. How is that likely to affect demand or consumption, or even the production of sesame-based products?
Right. I think food processing is exempted for now, as we are not, so our factory in Tianjin didn't get any alert. We are able to produce round the clock. So only non-prioritized sectors have been asked to reduce their consumption, or to especially which are considered as more of a luxury and not essentials. But from the food sector, so far we have not witnessed any shortage. So we should be in a winter demand, and in terms of the Chinese New Year demand, which is early this year, we should be looking good.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah. Thanks so much, Tarun. Go back to Alok. Alok, you mentioned prices in your presentation from 1250 to 1600 plus. How do you think this would affect the new planting? Because obviously this is a complete bonanza for the farmers in Africa. Okay. Fine.
Mr. Moderator, we have Usman Riaz on stage with us, and he probably has a question for you.
Okay. I'll just take him on. Is Mr. Gailey there as well? Or no, Mr. Gailey is not there. Yeah. Oshino-san? David, I'm going to come to you on Europe. India obviously lost share to Africa, partly thanks to the ETO issue and subsequently the freight issue.
Yes.
Since January this year, we have had, I would say, an exemplary track record on all our shipments to the European Union, possibly much better than what they were even prior to the ETO issue. So how would this affect the confidence levels in the European traders, the European importers, consumers likewise, for India to get its share back? Because all said and done, quality is very good, and in terms of logistics, I think we are still better off than Africa is.
Yes, we are not able to hear what you are talking right now. There might be some problem.
Sorry.
So like we are not able to hear. Can you please check?
Sorry, no, this was a question for David. David, could you hear that? I don't know.
I think David is not able to connect properly.
Okay.
Could you move on to the next question or the
Sure.
next?
There are questions for all the speakers right now. Suhail, good morning once again. You mentioned, when we were discussing the Western Hemisphere, Venezuela being out of the game, Mexico is smaller, Guatemala is a status quo, Brazil is down. So this is the supply side. Is there any change on the demand side within Central America?
No, can't hear. Can't hear anything.
Would you like me to repeat the question? Can you hear me, Suhail?
I can hear you perfectly, but I think David just so.
Right. We will come back to David if we can have your feedback on the demand part of it.
You list. I can hear. Yes, now it's coming.
Okay.
Coming now.
So,
On the demand side, we are seeing that the freight differentials, especially out of India, are increasing demand for Central America or Mexico origin, as well as Paraguay or Brazil, when it comes to natural and whole sesame seed. Yes.
so do you expect there would be a lot of trade within the Western Hemisphere with logistics being what they are? It's probably easier to truck a lot of cargoes between different countries rather than, getting stuck with containers, etc. How do you think that part of it would play out?
Okay, it really depends on what country we're talking about. If we are seeing, for example, Mexico, outbound logistics to the United States are very favorable, especially because there's access to railroad and then trucking. That continues to be somewhat expensive, but given current freight prices or sea freight prices, it's viable for some countries to adopt some form of land logistics instead of outbound sea logistics. On the other hand, the container situation is a big risk. Currently,
Dubai, we cannot hear anyone in the group. Is there any problem going on?
Sorry, Suhail, go on, please.
Currently, we're seeing some container shortages, especially out of South America, principally Paraguay and Brazil, but that situation hasn't materialized fully in Mexico, Guatemala yet, but there's chances that it will in the coming months.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Okay, thank you so much, Suhail. David, can you hear me? And I can repeat my question for you. Yeah. Hi, David. Can you hear me? I'm guessing not. Sanjeev ji, good evening. Like Mukul said,
These are the sort of questions I like.
sorry? Okay. Is David back or am I talking to Sanjeev? So, David, can you hear me? David's on mute again. Yeah. Sanjeev ji, I'll come to you. Yeah. Excellent presentation as always, but sometimes we still miss the fine print and we can't ever find out whether you're bullish or bearish with your presentations. So I must say you're doing an excellent job on that part of it. Sorry, there's somebody saying we cannot hear the panelists. Sanjeev ji, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Okay. So you mentioned in your presentation the Chinese crop reduction, which led to a change in stock levels as well as a change in prices. But China has been reducing their production over the period of time, and even with a 20-30% less, in a crop of 253 or 300,000 tons, if you have 30% less, it's about 100,000 tons, give or take. Maybe by numbers off by 20-30,000 tons at the maximum. So is that really, like a deal breaker in terms of prices moving? Because 100,000 tons when China is importing 1 million tons is 10%, and if you look at the total global sesame trade of 2+ million tons, then it's not really such a big mover and shaker according to me. So if you can just sort of elaborate as to what could be the real, point breaker over here for prices to have reacted the way they did, and give some insight for the trade.
Sanjeev, just to elaborate on that particular point, what I mentioned was that with the small news of Chinese crop being low, that is the time when price starts going up. Because June end is a time when you could not have predicted a problem with India, we could not have predicted a problem with Sudan, Nigeria, anywhere. But then price starts going up on such a small cube. So the point I was trying to drive was that sesame is highly volatile. And I'll just add on one more anecdote here, that I was recently talking to an analyst who analyzes cash crops. And he came up with a very strange comment that amongst the cash traded crops, the cash traded crops means the crops which do not get traded on the terminal, there is no cocoa terminal, there is no coffee terminal. Pure cash traded crops do not have these kind of volatility. So a lot of small exporters, a lot of small exporting countries can really change the sentiments. And that's why my comment that we should be careful, we can't take it to be a one-way street. Definitely there is a shortage. And definitely if everything stays same, it should play out and it should turn out to be a bullish season. But take any cues, over past few years we've seen several times when small change which warranted possibly a 50 to 100,000 tons of crop change leads to a disproportionate increase in price, and vice versa as well. That is what I was trying to be commenting on the peak. What we feel is possibly there are moves up and down rather than a one-way street. This will be a bit of a topsy-turvy ride. ultimately we might end up higher than this.
Fair enough. Fund managers have had a lot of liquidity with all the quantitative easing. We've seen a lot of it in all the different big traded items, whether it's soybean, corn, etc., etc. Do you think some of this money has also come into the Sesame trade?
Very difficult. I mean, if it has come, if they have funded some small traders, it's always possible. But the way any fund would like to have a position is they would like to be able to exit that position as well immediately. And we have seen in Sesame that's not a situation that if you want to go and sell 30,000 tons of Sesame in a day, you possibly cannot.
Absolutely.
Funds kind of a situation, they probably work mainly with the on the terminal, not with the cash trading.
Thank you. Thanks for this. Jay.
Sanjeev, you said that many scenarios could play out. Can you give us one or two scenarios which could, like, of course, one-way street is what all market participants are predicting, and that is why there is a very good chance that will not happen. But what are the other scenarios that could play out?
So one scenario which we are very much worried about is how will Sudan play? Because Sudan has this rule that you can only bring in capital when you're doing a shipment out of that place. Right? You cannot replenish your working capital till the time you've done the shipment. So how much money can people hold? How much money, even if they're financially very, very strong, how much money can they invest in a country like Sudan? Or in any country? I'm not specific about Sudan. In any country, everyone has a risk appetite and they have risk functions. So that could be one scenario which could play out. Now imagine a situation, just like you had issues with Sudan, in very recent past we have seen issues like that with Nigeria as well. If Nigerian port also starts becoming that way, then the disparity between origin and the destinations will become very high. And we will not be in a very friendly trade zone in that situation. Now while you will see spot parities, you will see, okay, you can buy in Nigeria at X and X plus 5% you can sell in any other market. But you're not able to do the shipment. And by the time you're able to do the shipment, possibly the prices would have changed. And if it changes in either direction, then there is our industry has had different challenges in terms of contract execution and
correct. So
yes,
I think that will remain to be seen. The cargo is there, the buyer is there, but when it reaches, what happens? That will be a big question this year. So is this question, the next question is to you and Tarun by both. So there is, in his slide and his presentation, he had a prediction where the Chinese port stocks could land up at 100,000 tons or 125,000 tons by the year end. How big an impact would that have? Earlier, whenever that has happened, that had a very bullish impact on the trade. But what kind of impact will it have in the current scenario? If I could have your comments and the Vice comments on it.
Hello? Okay, let me go first on that. See, if you see in my slides, there was one slide that we were comparing the Chinese port stock and the local prices. We have seen times when Chinese port stock is going up and prices are also going up. At the same time, there are times when Chinese port prices are coming down and port stock at the port prices are coming up. So there is no correlation. It's just a misnomer. In November, even if it goes down in December, the Chinese sentiments would be basis how much of the shipment has taken place out of West Africa. Is there a huge backlog that still continues out of, let's say, Sudan or Ethiopia or even Mozambique? Those would be the factors. So everyone is so well connected. I think a Chinese trader sitting in Qingdao knows at what price auction was in Tanzania yesterday. broadly they know how much of the shipment is getting delayed, how much of the shipment is in time. So Chinese ports are just an indicator. Beyond that, it really doesn't have too much of value as per us. You might have a different view.
Not very different, I think Sanjeev, you covered it very well. It's one of the variables, and the weightage of the variable changes based on how the others are behaving. So as you rightly said, that if the forward outlook is that there is not Sudan port is closed and there is no much shipments happening from Sudan, the Chinese local prices can start coming. It is always a function of forward outlook and the current spot inventory and the prices prevailing at the port. So far there have been times when the port prices are completely dealing with the international prices, and also there will be again some times where we will see both acting in the same function. So lower port stocks and lesser arrivals forecasted will result in a higher price. Because anybody holding inventory at that point of time with higher replacement cost would not sell at cheaper price, because then you see a margins to be made in a short window of time. So at that time you will see some correlation, but that may not be true for the remaining part of it. Yeah.
If anybody has some questions from the audience, we are happy to do that. In the meantime, I have a question for Alok. Alok, can you hear me? Yeah. Alok, it shows you on mute. Yeah, okay. Can you hear me, Alok?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Excellent presentation as always, covering Africa. A few questions for you. You mentioned Tanzania from 1250 to 1600 plus current pricing. How would this affect the new planting? Because it's an absolute bonanza for the farmers.
No, the problem is the prices has gone up after the farmers has sold their goods. Maybe when the farmers were selling and the arrivals were going on, it was only 1350. So only farmer will know maybe through other sources that the prices has gone up. They have not actually seen the the increase in the prices as such. But still, I feel because everybody is even the farmers are aware of what's going on in the market. So definitely it will impact on the crop size next year.
Correct. And another question on Nigeria. We sitting in India, we are hearing that there's a lot of local covering which is happening for the local, the hullers, who want to export to Europe, USA, etc., etc. So what is the total hulling capacity available in Nigeria, and how much do you think they would stock first before selling it to the rest of the world out of their crop? And maybe after you, maybe Sanjeev can also throw some light on this.
Maybe, yeah. Probably hulling capacity, exact information either Tarun or Sanjeev can give in a proper way, because they have their own plants. Olam has got their plant capacity down there. But what I feel is, if the margins are good, if the margins are better than whatever they have earned in the previous year, definitely they will go for their next 6 months sale as a stock. That's for sure. Maybe on their financial capacity is too good, then probably they will go more. But I still feel, because they are able to sell, and the freight difference is, it's huge. It's not $20, $30, $40. The difference from the freight from India to Europe, or say to the destination, or the Nigeria from Nigeria to the destination. So that will keep them giving profit, plus whatever profit they are earning in the factory. So they will definitely buy. It's only one-time opportunity probably they will get that kind of profit. Nobody will want to lose it. They will take money from wherever and they will do that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Do we have some questions from the audience? Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, one question that I was asked from the audience is, what are the chances that India will be able to export directly to China in the coming 1 month, 2 months in this season basically? Sanjeev Bhai or Tarun, whoever would like to answer this, or both of you. What sort of plus in African prices, what sort of a minus in Indian prices could lead to that happening? Was I clear?
Jared, yeah, you were clear. See, right now with the 10% duty and on top of it 9% VAT and clearing cost, the parity is not there. And also with the winter season coming to India, most of us believe the other way around, that India's local prices may probably not allow the parity to come to for the China trade. Border trade, in my opinion, is a very risky proposition. And less likely that there is, given the risk, they're strictly following the border trades, and I doubt that will materialize. So with duty, I think with winter demand coming in, India may not get the parity, but it will need at least lower prices from here to have the parity, which is less likely scenario from us.
Also, one thing is just not price parity. Is it possible that China will need the seed and that is why they'll have to buy, because India is an origin which can deliver fast? Is that a possibility also?
Well, again, we cannot never say never. You don't know how things pan out there. Because, see, right now, if Sudan continues to behave the way it is behaving and the equipment is not happening so much, over-dependence on Nigeria and Burkina can result in a small window of opportunity.
Sanjeevan?
Yeah. So, I'll probably view this question in combination with the previous question which you have asked. If India were to have the, let's say freight is parity, freight from India to China and freight from Africa to China continues to be same. So you have the 10% disadvantage out of India. But if India is able to sell 10% cheaper, then would it not become far more competitive in the hard market?
Yes, that is so.
Would you prefer selling a naturals to China, or would you prefer selling a hull to Europe? And just continuing on the same issue, that yes, while there are good parities currently available on hull, but the way parities remain in Africa, everyone would want to buy for the month, hull and then ship it. Can we be sure that this 1600 price, 1500 price remains there for next 6 months? By the time you have a news of East African season being good and the crop comes to 1300 or people start shorting at 1300, parities are gone. So while yes, you might have the financial power, you can say, okay, I can stock it and we will stock it in the best places, no quality deterioration, everything. It's a huge exposure people will take. And as we know, none of the hull buyers is buying 6 months, 1 year down the forward now. They are also aware of it. So, purely assuming that anyone who has a hull facility in Nigeria or in Africa would be buying and would continue and cover his position at this moment is ignoring a few factors. No. Also, we tend to oversimplify situation, but that's not the reason why everyone would just continue to buy and stock. And if anyone has a very sure view, then you don't need the hulling also. Then you have a very sure view that I'll stock it up in Nigeria and sell it.
Right.
Somebody from the audience, I think.
Jay, a question for you. What was the estimate that you gave for the Indian crop size?
For the current year?
For the current year?
I did not give an estimate.
Yeah.
I have left it to the survey team to do it.
Okay, thanks.
Not be fair to them.
That's fine, thanks.
I have a question for Sanjeev Bhai and Tarun Bhai. While we always track the port stocks for Chinese market, what about the stocks which are held with traders and factories? Is it possible that in anticipation of prices going up, traders and factories are also buying more aggressively from port, and the stocks are just moving from port to the end users and the traders.
Not actually being consumed, you mean?
That's right. So they are stocked, from one unit to somewhere else.
That's what's been happening in the summer crop in Gujarat, but you will be better judges of what is happening in China. I think you are clear with the question, right?
Yeah, that's right. Let Sanjeevji and Tarun Bhai respond to that.
Okay. So I'll leave the tougher part for Tarun to answer. I'll add one more complication here on your question. What if it's the other way around? That out of the 300,000 stock or 250,000 stock which is lying at the port, half of it is already committed to someone. And it's just lying there in Chendao, but it belongs to X processor, Y processor, A processor. So it's not available for market.
Yeah, that's quite.
That is, Sandeep, I think we all know that is a more likely scenario. As we all understand that a lot of Chinese purchases happen through the state-owned enterprises. If you take out the importer names in the list of the importers, you will see maybe IGOC or some of the bigger COFCOs and other state-owned enterprises like China Railway, China Complan, or other state-owned enterprises at the top importers. These are the front-end companies who will help the local importers to import, and then they take their deliveries or redeem their stocks whenever they need it. So with the carry cost and the interest cost which is afforded by the end user. So I agree with Sandeep that when it shows 230,000 tons or 250,000 tons as a port stock, a part of it is already committed. Nobody gives you a breakup of committed and available to the trade. So, but in our general estimate, there is always a bigger part of that is committed, and sometimes some of the factory owners also bought it for the processing, and if they see some cash margin to be made, they sometimes liquidate at the port as a position which is generally seen. So yes, the current situation and the forward situation will always be like that. Do not treat the port stock as the available inventory.
Thank you.
And that probably explains why this port stock and price are not correlated. Over last 5-6 years, they are not correlated.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Because it's very difficult to put a committed inventory at a point and available at a point. And also these committed inventories can turn into available inventories if you are making a supernatural profit.
Correct. One more question from the audience.
Yeah, my question is to Tarun Bhai, Sanjeev Bhai and Alok Bhai. Given the scenario, looking at this point of time, in a short period of time, if we consider two options, which option would you select? Chinese buyer buying above 1600 levels in a short period of time, or African sellers selling below 1600 levels? What would be your take? Option 1 or option 2?
I'll just go first because I don't want to complicate things. So I don't think Chinese buyers are ready for above 1600 to commit to bigger quantities.
Yeah, I also fail to see the breadth of the market right now. People are possibly talking of very few trades that have taken place at these kind of prices. And that's it. It's not the whole market has this kind of breadth. There are hundreds of customers who are willing to buy or commit at this price. And at the same time, even if the African shipper agrees, does the African infrastructure allow him to honor his contract?
Does that answer your question, Anupam?
Yeah, I think Alok Bhai is left out to give his
Alok Bhai, comments on that?
Yeah. No, I agree. Chinese are not a buyer at higher level, and even if they buy, they are buying small quantity. But the Africa is equally adamant this year, and they are also not reducing much. So I think somewhere, we need to find a balance between the two, and something will happen. That's all it is. But Chinese are very difficult to convince at higher level, even Turkish. That's a fact.
Thank you. David, are you online? Do we have David online? Do we have some other questions from the audience? Yeah, I think Mr. Hamish is online from Sri Yokupa. Hamish, can you unmute and ask your question? We had Mr. Osman also earlier who was trying. Yeah, I think Mr. Usman is also there again. If you can unmute either Hamish or Mr. Usman. Mr. Usman, you are there with us now. If you can.
Yes, my question is to Mr. Tarun. How much of a shortage in Chinese crop? What is estimated? 35% or is more?
See, we believe that China's Sesame local crop will not be more than 100 to 120,000 tons. Last year was also less. So that is where we put the number.
And the last question, how is the quality this year?
It's not very good, brother. It is rain damages and everything. So we have seen, again, we may be reading the situation wrong, that some of the local orders were picked up from the port because the white cargo was not available. So some of the people who prefer the local seeds actually had to come to the port, so which kind of indicated that the availability of high quality white seeds were not available.
But we have noticed recently that the price of mixed grade or the crushing grade has increased very sharply in China in last 2 weeks.
That's for the hulling demand, which will keep coming and going. We are right now entering the festival season, so that will happen. The lowest price tick will always be the most. If there is a gap to go up. That is my personal.
I think that answers Mr. Osman's question. Anybody else that we have? Sorry? The hulling capacity? Sanjeev ji and Tarun again. Somebody is asking about the hulling capacity in Nigeria. If both of you can throw some light on that.
I think theoretical capacity 35 to 40,000 tons input basis. How much of it we don't know.
This year, I think that 35-40,000 tons would be used to the maximum. There is an opportunity, definitely. So I will also put the number to 40,000.
So this is 35 to 40,000 tons of natural seed. Okay, thank you. I hope that Shailesh bhai, that answers the question. Anybody else from the audience? Okay. We are trying to get Mr. David Buttrey online because he's the one who can answer the EU. This is who?
Is the question to whom?
Yeah, for whom is this question? If Mr. Rajendra can tell us. Yeah.
Is there any scope of India importing from Nigeria or other African origins? This is the question.
That's for Jai, yeah.
Okay, so at current levels, I find it impossible for India to import Nigerian sesame seeds. If we are talking about 1500 or 1550 for a mixed grade, I don't think there's any parity at such levels. We would have landed price of around 120 rupees a kilo. It's not possible. Either our prices have to go up or theirs have to come down for import to happen. But imports will come in for contracts which were bought earlier, I think at 1350 to 1400 levels, or some of them may be diverted to China to book profits, I think. But those kind of levels can come to India, but current levels it's impossible.
Is there any way we can get Mr. David online? Okay. So if we don't have any more questions,
We are behind schedule in any case. I think, thank you once again, gentlemen from different parts of the world, for joining us at the IGOC today, and we look forward to continuing our journey together with the 4 C's for Sesame. Currency, commodity, containers, climate, and China. The 4 C's still remain in the game. Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you. We have come to an end for the Sesame sessions, and now we move on to the groundnut sessions, which are going online in a couple of seconds. All the people interested in listening to groundnut sessions, please be seated. Others can enjoy a cup of tea outside till the time they want to. I would now like all the speakers on the groundnut session to be online.